Hey everybody, it's Miss Ramsey.
And our dog.
Yep, this is Bernard.
Lucy, come here. Come
Look
on.
who this is.
Lucy.
Oh, and we have another dog. Lucy, come
Lucy,
here.
Come here.
Come on.
Come on,
Lucy.
Lucy. Whoa.
Lucy.
Whoa.
She's big, so it's kind of hard for her to get up here.
Yeah, but our dog is easy because he's
Lucy,
little.
come here.
And,
come on.
and you can see that Mama has a cheetah blanket. She loves cheetahs. You all know that, right?
Yep, that hasn't changed. All right, Ellie, go sit over there.
Goodbye, class.
So, I am going to read a chapter out of Seraphina today, and just as a warning, it is kind of a long one. But if you remember, we left off with Seraphina going to her first fancy dinner at the Biltmore house, and she hasn't noticed anybody acting suspicious except for this girl named Jess, who she said was sitting right across from her, and the girl's sapphire blue eyes were staring straight at her. So we're going to see what happens next. Seraphina wanted to confront Jess right then and there to ask her what she'd been talking about earlier and why she was always watching her so intently. But just as Seraphina opened her mouth to speak, Miss Vanderbilt rose to her feet. Gathering everyone's attention, the lady of the house stood beside her husband and began to address all of her guests. "If everyone would please stand," Miss Vanderbilt said, "George will be saying grace for us." Murmurs of quiet approval and respect ran through the crowd as Mr. Vanderbilt nodded. "Thank you, Edith," he said, "and thank you for arranging this wonderful gathering here for all of us tonight." Enthusiastic cheers of agreement exploded from the crowd, everyone thanking Miss Vanderbilt, who beamed in modest gratitude. Seraphina could see from his soft smile that it pleased Mr. Vanderbilt that everyone loved his wife. But then he turned more serious, and a contemplative expression came over his face as he folded his hands in front of him and bowed his head in prayer. When all of the guests around the table bowed their heads, Seraphina lowered her head with them as Mr. Vanderbilt said grace. "Amen," everyone said in unison when he finished. A handsome young man wearing the dark blue and gold dress uniform of a United States cavalry officer rose to his feet and held up his glass. "If I may have everyone's attention," he said, his voice as soothing as a cup of warm autumn cider. "There's one more thing to do before we begin our dinner." "Oh, it's Lieutenant Kinsley," Mrs. A. Scott said excitedly as she leaned towards Seraphina. "Such a lovely boy. He looks surprisingly young to be an officer, fresh-faced and neatly kept, with wavy blonde hair swept to the side, soft gray eyes, a cleft chin, and a well-trimmed blonde mustache. He stood with the erect posture of a fencer and wore a cavalry saber belted at his side, and it was clear from his sly but good-natured smile that he knew he was standing among welcoming company. "If you would please raise your glasses," he said as he lifted his crystal goblet, and everyone around the table followed his request. His smile and his eyes were almost sparkling when he turned toward Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt with obvious affection. "I would like to propose a toast to our grand and admirable hosts, George and Edith. May Biltmore always reign." "Hear, hear," everyone cheered. "Hear, hear." They all raised their glasses, smiling and nodding as they looked upon Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt, who smiled back in return. And then, together, everyone drank from their glasses. "You are too kind," Miss Vanderbilt said graciously. "And one last toast," Lieutenant Kinsley said, raising his glass once again as he looked at the people gathered around the table. "We have come down to these southern mountains to be with good friends, both new and old, in this year of 1900, the start of a bold new century. As you all know, it is tradition in our families to come together at this time of year to spend the hunting season with one another, and I too look forward to our time in the woods for the challenge and the camaraderie it brings. I would ask that we hunt with honor and respect, not just for the beautiful hunting grounds that our generous hosts have provided us, but for the natural world we are about to enter. For it is in the mystery of these forests that we begin to find our true selves. So finally, I would like to propose a toast to everyone here tonight. May all of our hunts be bountiful, all of our card games be exciting, and all of our tea times be... Here he seemed to be unable to find a suitable, elegant phrase. Full of tea, he said finally, laughing, and everyone laughed with him. And most importantly, he said, turning more heartfelt now, may our time with our beloved friends and family be fulfilling to our souls. Bravo! Many of the guests shouted, nodding warmly. Hear, hear! Others cried as they raised their glasses and drank. She wasn't sure if she belonged among these ladies and gentlemen or not, but watching what Mrs. A. Scott, Mr. Kettering, and the others did with their glasses, Seraphina raised her water glass and participated in the toast with everyone else. There was something that she liked about this simple gesture of honoring the people around her, sharing in that moment with them. It made her feel as if she was one of them, part of their family. And she marveled at the bold young lieutenant, the way he was so relaxed and charming in front of everyone. She had been so nervous to even attend the dinner. She couldn't even imagine standing up in front of all these people and speaking to them. And she had to admit that despite what else was going on, the lieutenant's toast had made her feel at home, as if things were going to be all right after all. And as Lieutenant Kinsley sat down, his gray eyes looked across the table at her, and he smiled kindly. Seraphina thought for a moment that he might try to speak with her, but as the footman around the table began to serve the first course, a loud, overbearing voice at the other end of the table broke in. Well, I will tell you this, the man bellowed to those around him. It's not the gun, but the hunter pulling the trigger that makes the difference in the kill. The man reminded her of an old, muscle-bound bull with a swollen chest and bulging shoulders. He had a square jaw, a blockish head, and deeply tanned weather skin, like he'd spent years of his life outdoors. But since you're asking the question, the man continued, his booming voice filled with self-importance, I do my hunting with the most effective weapon that has ever existed, the venerable 1873 Winchester Henry repeating rifle. As he talked, he sat with his chest stuck out like a rooster, showing off for hens, which in this case were the men and women gathered around him at the table, listening excitedly to his stories. You see, the Henry repeating rifle is known as the gun that won the West. I fought with it in the Indian Wars, and I've hunted with it all through North America, South America, and Africa. Many of the people around the loudmouth hunter seemed enthralled with him, but Seraphina noticed that Lieutenant Kinsley, who was trying to eat his soup, glanced at the man with a flicker of disaster. The lieutenant didn't seem to like the man any more than she did. And what do you make of Africa, Colonel Braddock? One of the ladies asked, filled with starry-eyed admiration for a man who had traveled to such distant places. Oh, the hunting there is marvelous, the colonel said. I'm proud to say that I bagged all of the big five, Cape buffalo, black rhinoceros, African lion, elephant, and leopard, the 5 game animals renowned for being the most difficult and dangerous to hunt on foot. Seraphina felt her gut tightening as she listened to this man bragging about his trophies. She had taken pride in doing her job as chief rat catcher, so she understood the thrill of the chase. But it seemed so wrong to go around hunting all those beautiful animals. They weren't harming anyone, and he didn't need them for food. He just wanted to kill them for killing's sake. That's not right. She couldn't understand why Mr. Vanderbilt had invited people like this into his home. To go out into the forest and kill its animals, it seemed so wrong. Why was he allowing this? Alright, so since this is a long chapter, I'm going to stop right here. But I want you to be thinking about why you think Mr. Vanderbilt would allow these people to come and kill the animals if they weren't going to use them for food or anything. They were just killing them for the sake of killing them. So think about that. I love you guys. I miss you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, guys. Bernard says bye, too.